Welcome to the Gun Show with Matt Canovi on 1041 KSGF, Springfield's only News Talk FM. Firearms, ammunition, tactical accessories, training, and attacks on the Second Amendment. Matt covers it all. Call now, 447-5743 or 1-800-630-5743. Here's Matt Canovi.
Now, people in any administration can appoint people to the head of an agency, for example, like ATF, and that person can actually make regulations that, in effect, are actually laws, because if somebody like me, a citizen, violates any of those regulations that were written into law or written into the ATF regulations, that if I violate any of them, I can go to jail. And this circumvents the legislative process where the legislators actually make up what is and what is not a law. And Mike's going to dig into that much more in detail. And I'm going to give you an example of how this was really brought to the fore in my life. And for listeners of my show, bear with me because I've told you this story before, but I ended up buying it's a GSG-5, and it's a .22 caliber rifle that looks just like the MP5. So it's the same weight, same functioning system, same safeties, and it allows you to have some very low-cost practical training with an MP5. So I buy it. Great deal from our good friends over at Gunsmoke Gun Shop, so I buy that. And it had a fake silencer on it. And I did it because it reminded me of a silenced weapon I fired when I was, believe it or not, I took some training with ATF, and they brought out some machine guns, and I was firing their MP5 fully automatic with a silencer on it. So it brought back some good memories. Yeah, I want to go ahead and buy this. Totally legal, no problem. It was not a real silencer, it was fake. Just something that looked neat. Had the cool factor. Okay, I buy it. And a couple months later, my good friends up there at Gunsmoke Gun Shop say, hey, Matt, it's now illegal to own that gun you bought. I said, what? I said, what do you mean? I bought it. He said, yeah, I know. It was legal to import, but there is a new regulation put into effect by ATF that now says owning that gun is illegal. And I know Mike's done a lot of research on that. Mike, go ahead and just give our listeners an overview or read verbatim if you want to the exact regulation that was put into effect.
Yeah, Matt, you're right. On the American Tactical website, there's a letter to all the retail customers that reads, January 2010, American Tactical Imports, Incorporated, received official notification from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives that the original barrel shroud, in parentheses here, aka fake suppressor, supplied with your GSG-5 SD model must be replaced. It's been determined that this shroud is regulated under the National Firearms Act. American Tactical will provide a replacement shroud at no charge for each GSG-5 SD model sold or currently in inventory. Next paragraph is pretty interesting. Consumers in possession of a GSG-5 SD model with the original shroud in place on the firearm are now in violation of the NFA, or the National Firearms Act. That's ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Here they sell it, say it's okay to buy it, but now you're going to go to jail.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're saying.
Yep.
Because of this new regulation, I could have gone to jail.
Yeah, it's beyond belief for something that's just, it's just a cosmetic feature. It doesn't make any sense. Now, are they assuming that Matt Canovi may take his GSG-5 and replace it with a real suppressor? You think that could be?
Well, and here's where we go into the next aspect of it. Not only this is a great example of how a bureaucrat who is appointed, not elected, who is appointed by an administrator who is obviously against the Second Amendment, who is appointed, how somebody appointed to an agency could make up a regulation that could turn a law-abiding citizen into a felon just because at the stroke of a pen, totally circumventing the legislative process and any legislator creating and passing into law something that would affect the citizens of the United States. This is unbelievable. And not just that, but I don't know if it says there later on, Mike, or not, but about the fact that it's not because that this shroud is a real silencer or suppressor, but that it could be made into. Now, where is the protection from our Fourth Amendment that says I have the right to be secure in my property and papers? Now, I bought it. It's my property, and that you can't take my property or my papers unless you have probable cause that I am committing a crime or about to commit a crime or have committed a crime.
Yeah, I mentioned that tongue-in-cheek, Matt. I don't think that you're going to do anything illegal by taking a fake suppressor and replacing it. But it's not their responsibility to assume either.
Yes.
I mean, you've bought it legally, and now they've deemed it to be illegal, and now you're in violation. Well, the first thing that I thought about this whole thing was, well, where in the world are they getting this from? And I looked at the NFA, the National Firearms Act, and when it was implemented in 1934, I believe it was. And one of the reasons they did this was the Congress is acting to impose a tax. Now, the Congress can assess taxes. That's one of their authorities. So I have no problem with that. But there's an underlying presupposition they're wanting to do here, and that is to regulate and curtail even transactions of firearms. And that's where I think they're stepping over the line here, because you look at the Second Amendment, and it says, for a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the state, of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So Congress wasn't paying attention back in 1934. Something that was interesting here. Now, you look at what happens when you have like this stabbing that went on in Springfield, and that's horrendous. People across the country back in 1934 were thinking about something that happened back in 1929. Probably heard of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre?
Yeah.
When they had these guys posing as cops going into the warehouse. They line the mobsters up and they gun them down with machine guns.
Yep.
Well, you can imagine people thinking back then, well, machine guns, wow, who should own a machine gun? They kill people. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, if you're using the argument that guns kill people, you've got to also play it in the same way that cars kill people too, right?
Without a doubt.
Well, that's ludicrous.
Well, as a matter of fact, during the St. Valentine's Day Massacre, they actually used pump shotguns as well. So what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it just is another example of how bureaucrats actually are running this country. Heads of these agencies can make up their own regulations and their own policies that actually circumvent not only the legislative branch, but directly violate the Constitution of the United States. Mm-hmm. Not only did this regulation that the head of ATF put into place, not only did it violate the Second Amendment, because what definition of or what part of the word infringed does the head of the ATF not understand? Infringe means don't mess with in any way. Yet he's saying, no, Matt, we're going to make you a convicted, we're going to make you a felon just for owning this gun, even though we said it was legal in the beginning to import it into the States. So not only is it a direct attack on our Second Amendment, but our Fourth Amendment. Matt, now you own it. You bought it legally, but you're not safe and secure in your papers and property, even though we don't have any probable cause at all that you have committed a crime or about to commit a crime are going to use this in commission of a crime. It's unbelievable that they can go ahead with the stroke of a pen and directly attack our Second Amendment, bypass our Second and Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. It's absolutely amazing that this can happen in America. But, Mike, when you said earlier that the politicians weren't back in 1934, I think you mentioned it, the politicians at the time weren't thinking about it's the reason the bureaucrats have become so powerful now is because we, the voter, the citizen, has not been diligent and been asking questions like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. That the head of an agency We have to be screaming to our politicians. And I know when you were running for political office, you were one of the voices that we were hoping could actually take this message to those in power and let them know that, look, the people are not going to stand up for this anymore.
Well, Matt, you're exactly right. And I would hesitate to say that no, I don't hesitate, because there are people still today who aren't paying attention, and it's mind-boggling. A funny thing happened just probably a month after the November election. Someone came up to me and asked me, "How's your campaign going?" Can you believe that? I mean, I lost in August, and then they all the way through November, they're still thinking I'm running. It's just funny as all get out. So people aren't paying attention. It boggles my mind how people, if they're able to have a few dollars in their pocket, go home and watch TV, Survivor, American Idol, or what, Dancing with the Stars, whatever it is, they're happy. And I'm thinking, man, you got to open your eyes and pay attention. But I just don't understand what they're thinking about. They're comfortable and don't see anything that's going on around them.
And Mike, it goes back to what Thomas Jefferson said. And look, I'm to blame. I'm part of the problem too. I have not been as diligent as I should have been, screaming and hollering at the local politicians and at the federal politicians for what's going on, and being as active as I should be in the political side, so that people of like mind, freedom-minded people get elected to the right positions. But I can see it, and you get so caught up in going to work, paying the bills, take care of the family, involved in your church, and really that becomes your life. And as Thomas Jefferson said, you can't do that. The cost of freedom is eternal vigilance. You got to hold these politicians' feet to the fire every chance you can. And the only way we can do that right now is at the ballot box and supporting the parties that are the most prone, and I hate to say this, that are the most prone towards protecting our freedoms and liberties. I don't think there's any one party that stands totally for the Constitution and has enough power to actually win and make an impact. So the bottom line is, we're all guilty. We have all not been diligent, and we have not followed Thomas Jefferson's guidelines on eternal vigilance towards protecting our freedoms. I'm going to go ahead and step into a break. I want our listeners to give us a call here. Let us know what you're thinking at 447-5743 or 800-630-5743. In the meantime, I'm Matt Canovi, and this is The Gun Show on 104.1 KSGF, Springfield's only News Talk FM.
Don't tread on us, we're not afraid. You work for us, we're not your slaves. Don't tread on us, you cross the line. Soon you will pay for all your crimes.
This portion of our show will be sponsored by the new Southwest Missouri Independent Magazine, where it's all about you, Missouri. Check out my articles and videos on personal and home safety at smimag.com. Simply go to smimag and click firearms. This is Southwest Missouri's source for everything firearms, as well as food, dining, fashion, politics, and much more. All this at smimag.com. That's smimag.com. We've been talking with a good friend, Mike Moon, about the power of ATF administrators, not to mention any administrator, any bureaucrat